everybody, it's Alyssa. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a very exciting video. Today I am doing a video on me talking about my all-time favorite paranormal romance series. So all of these books are books that come in a series, which is a group of books. I have 5 book series that are my all-time favorite paranormal romance books, and I'm just going to talk about them and show you what they are. Keep in mind that these are not the best. I wouldn't say that these have the most in-depth storylines of all time. Like I said, these are series that I have read 4, 5, 6, 7 times since I was like in 6th grade, and I'm now 20. So books that I read back in middle school are obviously not going to be as good as when I read them now, just because my opinions on certain things have changed. Keep in mind that a majority of these books I read back in middle school, and that's why they have a special place in my heart, and these are kind of like my guilty read books. So yes, some of the relationships are problematic, and I can agree with that, but I'm just going to talk about them because these are literally series that I have read 4, 5, 6, 7 more times than I can really even count, and I just love them so much. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go in order from my all-time favorite to like my least all-time favorite, if that makes any sense. Can you see the dry shampoo in my hair? You probably can. Gross. If you've been following me for a while, then you probably already know what this book series is, just because I've been obsessed with it since I was in 6th grade, and I've always talked about it literally on my main channel since 6th grade. The first series is the Hush Hush Saga by Becca Fitzpatrick. This is the first book, which is Hush Hush. Second book is Crescendo. Third book is Silence. And the fourth and final book is Finale. This series has been an obsession with mine since I was like 11 years old. It's been a problem. I'm addicted, but I've just always really loved this series. This story is about a main character named Nora Gray, and she is at school. It's a typical high school paranormal romance story where her and the main romance interest are paired up together for a project in class. Who would have guessed? Most paranormal romance stories start that way. They're basically forced together as lab partners. The main boy character's name is Patch, and you soon find out later in the books that his real name is actually Jev. So I like to say Jev just because it feels a little bit more normal than Patch. Patch just sounds like a dog name to me. So I'm going to explain what it's about without trying to give any spoilers at all. I haven't read this in a couple years. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't read it in a while, so there may be some stuff that I'm forgetting, but I'm just gonna give the general summary of what it's about. Basically, they are partnered up as lab partners. They have to hang out outside of school, and Patch is the typical bad boy who's super sarcastic, really rude to Nora, but she keeps getting pulled in even though he is incredibly rude to her and talks to her so disrespectfully. He's super mysterious, so she wants to know more about him. Then she starts learning stuff about her family. Her father was murdered, and she is basically learning throughout the series who murdered her dad, and a bunch of paranormal stuff comes into play, like fallen angels. And I've always had a love, and I still do, for fallen angel stories. You guys will probably be able to tell that most of these are around fallen angel stories. I just love things that have to do with angels and fallen angels and everything like that. And literally throughout the series, she's just trying to figure out who murdered her father, who she is, what her family is, what Patch is, and all of this stuff just starts coming together, and that's all I can really give without giving too many spoilers and stuff like that. So it's a really, really good story. And if you guys want to check out any of these series on Goodreads, I will have the links for each book down below. But the first 3 sentences on the reviews for this is a sacred oath, a fallen angel, a forbidden love. So if you guys would like to check this out, it's really good if you like the like guilty pleasure paranormal romance books. It's not like the most amazing story in the world. Next we have the Fallen series by Lauren Kate. So this one I was obsessed with this book series back when it came out. I actually started reading it before the series was even finished. I remember having to wait for the next book to come out in the series. So this first book was published in 2009, and as you guys can see, soon to be a major motion picture because it did become a movie. Here's what the movie looks like. The movie is not amazing. Wasn't very good. There wasn't much of a plot, but I have it just for you know, to support Lauren Kate. But so the first book in the series is Fallen, then we have Torment, then Passion, and then after Passion there's a book that goes in the middle of the third and fourth book, which is called Fallen in Love. I have not actually read it. It's kind of just like a side story, so I was never really interested in reading it. Then we have Rapture, and then the fifth book is Unforgiven. I haven't actually even read this yet, but this is the Fallen story, but it's in the perspective of one of the main boy characters. So it's just kind of an additional book, but it's considered the fifth book of the series, and I have not actually read this. So this is about a girl named Lucinda Price who is sent to a boarding school because at her previous school there was an incident where she basically murdered someone by starting a fire. And I'm not going to go too much into that without like spoiling anything, but she's basically sent to this boarding school, and in this boarding school she meets this very rude, mysterious guy named Daniel Grigori. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. That's how I've always said it in my head. There's also a boy named Cam who's kind of a love interest as well. So there's kind of a love triangle throughout the books, and it drives me insane. But she meets this boy named Daniel who completely ignores her. He is super rude to her, but for some reason she keeps going back to him, kind of like how Hush Hush was. You figure out throughout the series why he ignores her, and there's this big plot of basically reincarnation. Daniel is a fallen angel, and a lot of pretty much all of the people that go to the boarding school are paranormal creatures. They're not actual real humans. She meets them, she learns more about them, and then there's just a big story going on from there. Her best friend that she meets in the school named Penn, I absolutely love her as a character. I think she is so sweet and so cute. I hope you guys love her best friend as well when she meets her. But it's just basically a story, without spoiling anything, where she figures out her past lives, and throughout the series she actually goes back in time through time travel, and she can see her past self, her past relationships, and I love. The first book is not my favorite book of the series. Throughout the series it just gets better because she's going back in time and meeting all of these different characters and all these different time periods, and I really love it. So that's my second favorite book series. And if you guys want to check out the movie, it probably won't make much sense to you because they're awful at actually like putting a plot. So I'd recommend reading the books, then checking out the movie. Next we have the Sweet series by Wendy Higgins on Goodreads. It's really just called Sweet, so it's the Sweet series. That's what I'm going to call it. I have read this book series way more times than I can even count. I love it so much, and I'm hoping that I can explain what this series is about without butchering it, because I've actually never ever read a book series quite like this. It has a really unique storyline, which is something that really pulled me in. This book series is about the sons and daughters of fallen angels. So each fallen angel has this certain sin that they are like assigned with. So we've got like the fallen angel of lust, the fallen angel of greed. The main character named Anna Witt, she can actually sense the emotions of other people. She can see their auras and see what they're feeling at the certain time. So that is her sense that she has. And there's basically all these kids that have these powers to basically lure humans into sinning. That is their job. Because their parents are these high and mighty fallen angels and have all this power, they're basically slaves to what their parents are, and they have to basically pull humans towards sin. So I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but it's so, like, it's just so good. And when she turns 16, she finally starts to figure out why she has these powers and how she's able to sense people's emotions. When she meets the main character named Kaiden Rowe, he is the son of lust. So basically he has to have sex with people, and he's forced to do it by his father, and you learn his story, and he basically tells Anna what she is. She starts meeting all of the other sons and daughters, and she's in this new world where she has to figure out who she is and fight against what her father is forcing her to do. I can't really say much more than that. Normally if these children, they're like in their 16, 17, 18 years old, if they don't follow their dad's rules, it's always the father, then they are murdered. their parents murder them, and that's that. So if they don't do what they're supposed to do, they're murdered, and the story is all the children fighting back against what they've been forced to do their entire life. I hope that makes sense. It's really good. I just recommend reading it because the story is amazing. I love the forbidden slow burn romance that we got going on. It's really good. There's a bunch of different ethnicities. There's people from like Asia. I want to say Africa, but I don't really remember, so don't quote me on that. But there's a bunch of different children from a bunch of different countries and ethnicities, and I really love it. So hopefully that made any freaking sense to you. I'm awful at explaining things. Oh, and I didn't even go over the books in the series. So we have Sweet Evil, Sweet Peril, Sweet Reckoning, and Sweet Temptation is actually the story in Kaiden's point of view. So this is considered the 4th book, but it's actually a trilogy. So this is the story of all 3 books in the guy's point of view. Next, I'm literally talking so much I can't breathe. Next we have the Infernal Devices trilogy by Cassandra Clare. I would have even guessed that I would put a Cassandra Clare book in here, but of course I did. I finished the Infernal Devices a couple months ago, so it's more fresh in my mind, and I just remember how much I love this. When I finished the last book, I was literally crying in my bed for hours. This is great. As part of the Shadowhunter world that Cassandra Clare has made, I believe the Infernal Devices is 100 times better than the Mortal Instruments. The series can be read without having to read the Mortal Instruments, but the world analogies and stuff might not make much sense to you, but this can be read without having to read any of the other Cassandra Clare books. But this is a story about a girl named Tessa Gray who is actually a warlock. She gets kidnapped and she basically has to turn herself into a bunch of different people, and she's being tortured to do it. She gets saved by some shadow hunters, and she basically goes to this academy. It's not really even an academy, it's like a institute where she meets a bunch of shadow hunters and she lives in the institute with them. She is forced to marry this guy who is trying to start an army of clockwork creatures, so that's why it's called Clockwork Angel, and the main character Tessa is a huge part in making the Clockwork Angels. So she's being hunted down by these villains, and the shadow hunters are trying to keep her alive, and there is a huge love triangle in the entire series between Tessa, Will, and Jem. And honestly, throughout the entire series I was so confused, and I just wanted them to all to be together in just one big relationship because I could not figure out who I wanted together more. But the way the trilogy ends, I was satisfied by the ending. It was beautiful. It was so emotional, but the series is so good. So the first book in this series is Clockwork Angel. The second is Clockwork Prince, and the third and final is Clockwork Princess, which I can't. Every single time I read it, I just can't stop crying. If you guys want to read a Shadowhunters book but you don't really want to get into the Mortal Instruments, the Infernal Devices would probably be the best thing for you because the storyline is amazing. And I don't know if I said it before, but it's based in the 1800s. And then the last series, which is one that kind of snuck up on me randomly back when I was in middle school, and I just ended up loving it so much that I would think about the book for months after I would read it, and then I would read it again. And it is Nevermore by Kelly Craig. This was a book that I actually got from like a library or something, I don't remember, but I remember reading the book, and the second and third book weren't even out yet. So here's the second book, is Enshadowed, and then the third book is Oblivion. Those last two books weren't even out yet, so I had to keep reading this because I could not stop thinking about it. So this story is based on a main girl character named Isabel, and she is a popular blonde cheerleader at school. She is partnered with this very emo, quiet kid named Varen. And during class, Isabel notices that Varen is always drawing sketches into his journal. He's literally always drawing 24/7, and she starts getting really nosy and she wants to know more about the drawings in his journal. The one thing I really love about Varen is that he is very sarcastic and funny, and when he does actually talk, I love all of the things that he would throw back at Isabel because she was a total bitch to him and he would not take it, and I absolutely loved him for that. He wasn't the typical bad boy in a paranormal romance story. He was quiet, kind, sarcastic, and he would just keep to himself, and that's something that I really loved about him. So from what I remember of the story is that the drawings in Varen's journal are actually related to Edgar Allan Poe stories. And if you don't know who Edgar Allan Poe is, he's an old like poet writer from back in the day. I learned about him a lot in English class back in high school, and I really love Edgar Allan Poe's writing. So when this was based around Edgar Allan Poe stories, I was so happy and intrigued. But the Edgar Allan Poe stories basically start coming to life through Varen's journal, and he has no idea what's going on, and he's basically being like possessed and talked to by this evil spirit, this like Edgar Allan Poe type spirit thing, but I can't really go too much into it after that. Isabel kind of gets sucked into his life because she has to hang out with him outside of school so they can get their project done, and she slowly starts opening up to him. He slowly starts opening up to her, and when her friends start bullying him, you know, she sticks up for him, and she basically just stops hanging out with her friends and family and completely is intrigued into Varen's life. It's a really good story. If you love Edgar Allan Poe, then you'll love this. The series goes on, it gets really dark. There were some scenes that I was like, ooh, that's kind of gross and kind of creepy, and you basically go into this whole nother world. Like, I've been saying basically a lot in this video, I'm sorry, but you're going into a whole nother world in this series, and I really love it. If you want a really unique paranormal romance story, this is going to be the one for you. It's a really big book, and it did take me a while to read all of them just because there's so much detail in the writing and so much story that you have to like think about what you're reading, but it was really good. So yeah, I don't know if I did amazing at explaining these stories. I've never actually done a video like this where I talk about books that I've read and books that I love. So if you've read any of these books and you love them as well, or if you don't like them, then comment down below and let me know that your thoughts on them and we could talk about it. Also comment down below what your favorite paranormal romance books are, and I would love to check them out myself because like I said, I'm always going to be a lover of paranormal romance books. If you guys want me to do any more videos like this on any other book genres or any other books like this in general, then just comment down below and I will try to do them. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.